Good evening, everyone, or should I say good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to a special midday edition of the Danger Zone. I am your host, Ken Moore. Coming up next, we'll be joined by Titans senior writer Jim Wyatt as we will take a look at the Titans' upcoming training camp schedule beginning next month in July. And we'll take a look at some of the position battles, and we'll talk a little bit about Jim's career as a writer in Tennessee with the Tennessean and also with the Titans. All of that coming up and more next on the Danger Zone.
You're in the danger zone. You're in the danger zone. You're in the danger zone. You're in the danger zone. You're in the danger zone. You're in the danger zone. You're in the danger zone. You're in the danger zone. You're in the danger zone. You're in the danger zone. You're in the danger zone. You're in the danger zone.
Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome, everyone, to a special midday edition of the Danger Zone. I am your host, Ken Moore. Thank you guys for joining me this afternoon. Coming up in just a minute will be our special guest this afternoon, Titans senior writer Jim Wyatt, taking some time out of his busy afternoon to join us here today. Before we get started, we definitely want to get you guys to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that notification bell. If you are new to the show, we definitely want to get you involved. If you have some mailbag questions for Jim, put those in the comment section, and we'll see if we can get to those here this afternoon. So without further ado, thank you, Mr. Jim Wyatt, for joining the show. Welcome. How's everything in Tennessee?
Everything's great. I hope you're having a great day today.
It is good. It is good down here in Houston, where the temperature index is predicted to get up into around the 110 degree mark this afternoon. So I plan on staying inside for as long as I can here today.
That's a smart move. Yeah, smart move. It's hot here too. I think it's supposed to be the hottest day of the week here today. Training camp is approaching, so I know players probably no matter where they are now, hoping this temp calms down a little bit. I think it's supposed to be about 101, 102 heat index here today. I hope it's not like that when camp opens on July 24th.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's hop right into it, Jim. What is this time of year like for you? I mean, you're kind of in between that dead period between OTAs and training camp starting about a month from now. Is it vacation time for you? Like, what is your day like, kind of during this dead season?
I hope you don't mind this wardrobe change in the middle of the set. I just shut my office door. And it's already getting a little stuffy in here. AC doesn't make it in here very good when the door's shut. So, this is a time where I'm getting ready to get away a little bit. It's quiet in the office now, but I'm trying to work ahead. So I've got training camp previews that start on July the 8th with the quarterbacks. And then I've got 11 of those that will run, 8th all the way to the 22nd leading up to camp. And then I've got other stories in the works to try to fill that void from the downtime stuff I've accumulated during the course of the off season. But not a lot of guys are here. Like I'll look out my window and see some guys that are rehabbing, doing some stuff on their own, but it is kind of the quietest time of the year in the NFL. The league never stops from the time the season starts, really year round as far as the calendar goes, and that affects me as well. Even if the Titans don't make it to the postseason, I'm covering the Super Bowl and covering the Pro Bowl and covering owners meetings and combine and draft and and then OTAs and mini camp starts. And then really the quietest time of the year in the NFL is usually the third week in June up until getting close to training camp. So we're in that window now. So I'm glad I can make this work here before I disappear a little bit.
All right, there you go. There you go. Talk a little bit about your transition. Obviously, Nashville native, worked for the Tennessean, went over to the Titans a few years ago. You've been with the Titans for how long now?
It's crazy to think, but this is coming up on season number 10. I started, wow. Which just shows you how much time flies. I started working for the team in 2015 after covering the team from 1999 to 2014, and time just keeps on moving. I've been fortunate enough to been able to stick around here from the very beginning of the Titans days when it was Steve McNair and Eddie George and Javon Curse and Frank Wycheck and Bruce Matthews. I could go on and on with some of those guys all the way up until now, and seen a lot of changes from head coaches to GMs to players to really people inside the building. And the professions change. My job is obviously different now than I worked at the Tennessean, but still doing it and feel fortunate that I'm still doing it.
What is that transition, or what was that transition like when you go from covering the team, sometimes having to be critical of the team, and you take on a different role now within the organization? What was that transition like for you internally on how you had to write your stories once you became a member of the organization?
Yeah, it is different. I mean, I think people that know me, know that kind of always a newspaper guy at heart. That's what I broke into. When I first got out of college, I started working at the Tennessean, really answering the phone or taking what's called agate. I take hole-in-ones, bowling scores, every high school sport. My job was the Tennessean, and I'd answer the phone. And then I got a couple of chances to start, wrote a couple of stories, general assignment reporting. Then I started covering high school sports, small colleges, and I got a chance again to start working in 1999 with the Tennessean under Jeff Legwold and Paul Kuharski. They helped break me in, and had great columnists around me. David Clymer and Joe Biddle and Larry Woody. Mike Jones was my sports editor there, and I was in a culture there where you were supposed to own the news. If you're working for the newspaper of record in Nashville, Tennessee, covering an NFL team, you're supposed to own the beat, and you're not supposed to rely on Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport or Tom Pelissaro. I don't care who it is to get your news. You're supposed to get it. So I try to roll my sleeves up, because that's the way I was taught, to try to get every piece of news on the Titans beat, whether it's a hiring, a firing, who's getting cut, who's making the team, who's got an ACL, who's got an MCL, who got into trouble with the police overnight, was there a fight on the team plane, who's coming in on a visit. I mean, it's life consuming, to be honest with you, and that's the life I lived from 99 to 2000, up until the summer of 2015. I tried to get every piece of news I could on the team. If somebody beat me on a story, it would bother me for weeks, and I'd try to get the next one. I got ulcers. I'd sleep with my phone beside me at night. I had a lot of vacations and family dinners interrupted because I wasn't going to ever rest on that beat. So that's the mindset I had as a Tennessean reporter, and I love doing it, but it is life consuming. And I don't know how, probably couldn't have done that forever. When I first got the opportunity to work for the Titans, I certainly had to think long and hard about it again, because I grew up in the newspaper and always felt newspaper business, and always felt like I was going to go down with the ship. Saw a lot of good friends of mine that were laid off or reassigned. And I kind of thought, well, I was going to stay at the Tennessean until they eventually laid me off, or try to find somebody cheaper to do it. And but then when the opportunity came to work for the NFL team in my hometown, do something different, have another set of challenges, work with what I knew were good people in the building, I took it. It is different. Like, used to fight my whole life to figure out what they're not telling me, try to get it out there. And now, obviously, you work for the team. I know a lot of stuff, and some stuff I can't say. I can't always. I can't write. Be too critical. They don't. They let me have a lot of freedom. I can still give, some analysis. I can still tell it like it is to some degree, whether that's in mailbags or that's in opinion pieces. But I'm certainly not going to hammer the head coach for a fourth down call, or I'm not going to be too critical of a player. Try not to be too much of a homer, even though obviously I work for the team, and my job is to kind of write positive stories about the team and also try to be fair. Nobody wants to read about how good a day the punter had when you lose 40-3. I mean, so I realize that. Try to do as good a job as I can with the job that I have. Again, been lucky to work with so many people that have been supportive of me, and I still try to compete with people who do it, the other way. And but there are limitations, and certainly it's
absolutely.
There are times when I took pride in trying to be ahead of the news and try to break stories. Now I got to play by the rules. Sometimes we'll trade for a guy. We traded for Jerry Sneed this offseason. I couldn't write anything about it for a week because he had to come in here and take a physical and sign the contract. And so there are certain procedural things that are difficult for a guy who is competitive and wants to be in front of the news. But that kind of goes with the territory. And I say I've accepted. I still kind of fight to try to, hey, let's be a little bit more aggressive on this. But that's above my pay grade, and people are probably tired of hearing me complain about it. So I need to probably keep my mouth shut and just keep doing my job.
Yeah. I know that internal struggle because, like you, I started in the business as a reporter, as a sports reporter, in Lufkin and in Victoria and in towns here in. Before I came back to Houston, and I started, actually my first major job was working for the Astros back in 99 and 2000 covering baseball. So I know that internal struggle of going from a guy that's looking to break stories and get it out in front of the media. Then once you're kind of a part of the organization, you have to kind of keep those things in, kind of temper your comments a little bit. So I definitely understand that struggle, and that's why I wanted to kind of get your perspective on that. Diving into training camp coming up, as you mentioned, you've been around several coaching changes throughout this organization. Can you give us a sense of what this change has been like compared to some of the other changes when Vrabel first came in, or when Mike Mularkey first came in, or when Ken Wisenhunt first came in? Can you kind of comment as to kind of what you see that's different, that's the same, and kind of your perspective?
Yeah, it's certainly different. It's kind of hard to know right now because we're just sitting here in June and they haven't been to camp and they haven't played the game. I can tell you that the feel in the building is different. I mean, guys seem like they're more relaxed, and guys seem like they're upbeat, and guys seem like they're not as stressed. I don't know whether that's because of Brian Callahan's approach and just the way they feel things are in the building, or whether that's the fact because the team hasn't played a game yet and they're 0-0. I mean, the stress comes when the games start in September, and you see how you handle adversity then if things don't go well. But it's certainly, different from a coaching staff perspective, how they're coaching guys on the practice field, how guys feel they're being treated and given the message inside the building. The culture is different because the coaching staff is different because the roster looks so different. I mean, we've seen, the off season, looking at the list of all the, obviously some really good players have gone, including Derrick Henry. But then I look at free agency and I see Tony Pollard and Lloyd Cushenberry and Chidobe Awuzie and Kenneth Murray and Sadiq Charles and Mason Rudolph and Calvin Ridley and Sebastian Joseph Day and Tyler Boyd and Nick Vanette and Jerron Christian. It's not counting J.C. Lane and all the draft picks. I mean, that's a lot of new players that are coming in to key spots that are going to change the message in the room. So everything feels different right now But I do think that Brian Callahan really assembled a good veteran coaching staff and has changed things up that has reinvigorated some guys that have been around here for a while in some different coaching, under some different coaching leadership.
I did want to ask you about two specific guys on the defensive side of the ball. One guy a lot of people may not know, Anthony Kendall, undrafted free agent out of Baldwin College, tiny school, came in, made this football team last year. I got a tip last year because his parents know some good friends of mine in Florida, and they know I'm a big Titans fan. And so they kind of gave me some insight that he was going to be signing with the Titans when he did. So I kind of, rooted for him personally. If you can talk to us a little bit about Kendall, what he brought to the team last year, and what can we expect? Do you think he's going to be a guy that can make this 53-man roster again?
Well, I really like Anthony. He's a tough kid, certainly a competitor. As you mentioned, came out of Baldwin Wallace College and underdog. And I look at some of the other guys like Eric Garrar is another guy who made this team as an undrafted player and just kind of fought and exceeded expectations. I expect Anthony Kendall to do the same again as far as the compete part goes. But that position has changed a lot. I mean, I mentioned L'Jarius Sneed and I mentioned Chidobe Awuzie. Roger McCray returns. That's three. They obviously drafted a cornerback and Jarvis Brownlee. I think that's four when it comes to making the roster. A guy named Gabe Judy Lawley has been really impressive this offseason. I don't know what that means as far as his chances of making the roster, but he's going to be a contender in that cornerback group. Same with Trey Avery, who's been around here for a while. So the numbers get up there pretty quickly. Farley's in the mix there. We'll see what happens with him from a health standpoint. So not a lot of spots to be had.
Right.
And that doesn't mean he's not a contender for a practice squad spot to hang around here and let them continue to further develop him. Just think when I look at that cornerback group, you can get to four pretty quick and get to five pretty quick, to be honest with you. And then so that makes it tougher for guys to stick. But I like what I've seen from him. I like his attitude. He's just, really a nice young man who bust his buttons and really impressed the prior coaching staff. And now he's trying to do it again this year.
A lot of questions about the Titans' second-round pick, T'Vondre Sweat. I'm a big fan. I went to University of Texas, so obviously I saw a lot of his snaps throughout the season. Extremely impressive, can move men, a guy that can move men and absorb space. And I think he'll be a perfect fit next to Jeffrey Simmons. Obviously, there was concerns about, if he was out of shape or injuries or whatever was going on during the OTAs and minicamp. What, if anything, can you shed on his situation as he prepares to come into camp next month? The message that the coaches have given to him to be prepared for a battle once he gets into camp in 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot to prove. There's no doubt. And when you're picked that high and you arrive in the NFL with some question marks about, your weight and an off the field incident that happened, he came in here with some people wanting to question that pick. He knows that, and certainly the organization knows that. And now he's just got to put his head down and go out and prove it. And unfortunately, he did miss a good chunk of the offseason. He was out there for the rookie camp. He was out there early part of the offseason, and then they shut him down because he was dealing with something that he needed to take time away to rehab for. And that put him behind the 8 ball a little bit, because the biggest thing for him this offseason, starting the day he got in the building, was to start getting yourself in good condition and lose some weight and be ready for training camp and ready for the season. And he lost a lot of important days working with his position coach, working around other players, and kind of getting up to speed and improving his technique. When camp starts, the team expects him to be ready to go, but again, this is June the 25th. Camp's reporting date is July the 23rd. First day is July the 24th. He's working on his own somewhere now, I imagine, and or at least he will be during the good part of the off season. And it's going to be on him to show up here ready to go and be ready to compete. And he's going to be doing in some hot summer days here. I like him as a player. You know, he is a guy who can be a serious problem if he's in good shape, and is going to free up things for other guys on that defense to make plays. But he's going to have to do his part, and hopefully he's doing that right now.
Can you draw any similarities to what he went through during mini camp in OTAs compared to what Traylon Burks went through a couple of years ago? Any similarities there?
You know, not necessarily. Like Traylon showed up here, and obviously was dealing with some conditioning issues and some asthma issues where he just had trouble breathing, and they pretty much shut him down until they could get him into better shape. And he also arrived here with some unfair expectations after being acquired on the same day they traded away A.J. Brown. So, you know, Devondre comes in here obviously with questions about his weight, but, you know, he was dealing with something that they just decided, hey, it's May and June, you know, let's get him in good shape and have him ready to compete in camp. You know, let's be smart about it. And, you know, from a pressure standpoint on himself, you know, yeah, he in some ways he's in the same boat of Traylon, is that all eyes are going to be on him to step up and contribute early. But, you know, two different cases, I think, and certainly two different guys. And now both guys on opposite sides of the ball, different stages of their career, are going to have to prove themselves in camp.
All right. Well, we only got a few more minutes with Jim, so I want to get over to the offensive side of the ball. And obviously, let's start with the quarterback position, Will Levis. What is a realistic expectation that fans can have from Will coming into his second year? Obviously, new offensive staff moving from Tim Kelly to Brian Callahan, completely new system. We saw a lot of deep throws last year. Obviously, he has a cannon for an arm. But with the array of receivers that they have now, with the different style of running backs we have in the backfield with Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears, and we'll see what happens with the third running back position. Would you anticipate a lot of 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers on the field for most of the game from that standpoint, and maybe a lot more underneath routes, crossing routes, things of that nature? What are your realistic expectations for this offense and for Will Levis, say the first month or so of the season?
Well, certainly better equipped to go 3 wide and have 3 guys, and you know, Hopkins and Ridley and Boyd, who can produce, and but also got 2 good backs in Pollard and Spears, and it kind of remains to be seen how they're going to use those guys, whether they're on the field at the same time. Sometimes, you know, who gets the biggest workload. I think a lot of that's going to depend on how those guys do. I think for Will Levis, I think what's realistic and maybe what's expected of him is to not feel like you have to do it all. Like, you don't have to be a hero or hit the home run play, because you've got guys around you now who have done this for a long time and can make things happen if you get the ball in their hands. So I think for Will, it's just about learning the offense, getting comfortable, get the ball in the hands of your playmakers. And for the Titans, they got to give them time. I mean, I think that's one thing last year, you know, whether it was Will Levis or whether it was Ryan Tannehill or whether it was Malik Willis, whoever was in there was kind of under siege, you know, from the time they got the snap. And rebuilt offensive line needs to do a better job of protecting him and letting him work.
Moving to the, you talked about the O-line, and obviously that's going to be a working process. You got Quisenberry at center. You got, you know, Stranowski at the guard, and then you got Latham at the left tackle position. From what you saw in, again, no pads or anything like that, but what you saw, how quickly can this offensive line gel? Because it's more difficult now with the lack of practices than teams used to have 5, even 10 years ago, where those offensive line had a chance to gel and go after it. Do we expect to see starters playing in the preseason, particularly that offensive line, to get them as one cohesive unit?
I think some, but not a lot. Like I think you got to weigh the pros and cons there. Obviously, this group is going to have to gel, and they're going to have to get on the same page, and that's not going to happen immediately. I feel like the left side from Cushenberry on is set. I mean, with Cushenberry and Skoronski and Latham on the left side, but a lot of questions on the right side. I'm sure they're going to give a lot of guys a chance, whether it's Deke Charles, whether it's Daniel Brunskill, whether it's Dylan Radens, right, guard, and then at right tackle. You're going to see a lot of guys in the mix there, whether it's Nicholas Petit-Frere or Leroy Watson or Jerron Christian, who they just brought in here. I mean, there a lot of guys will be in the mix, and I think you got to let them play and let them compete. But you're right; things are different now. Like a lot of time in training camp, you probably spend more time doing walkthroughs and really low contact type practices where you're trying to mentally get right, but doing things in the full speed with defenses trying to test you with stunts and guys coming from different places. That's not something that happens overnight. You got to be able to pass guys off. You got to be able to know what your responsibility is on each play. You got to know tendencies of the guy playing next to you, and it's a lot of this is going to be new. I do think that having an offensive line coach, Bill Callahan, he's a very disciplined coach, preaches technique, preaches accountability. I watch those guys in practice. I feel like they all are on the same page. So that helps them, and that they got a guy teaching them that is maybe the best in the business. But you still got to go out and play, and even can't even take things on the left side for granted, because Latham, I've been so impressed with him. He's a mountain of a man. He's a great athlete. He works his butt off. He puts in extra time on the practice field, but he's been playing right tackle. So going to play left tackle for him is going to be new at the start. So a whole bunch of things that need to be sorted out, and it could take a little while.
2 more questions before I get you out of here, Jim. Special teams, new kickoff rule this year. How much did the team spend on that during OTAs and minicamp? Did they spend a lot of time, a little time? Obviously, that's going to have to be ramped up once training camp begins. Second part to that, we see Kansas City. They're planning to use Justin Reed, position player, on kickoffs. Do you think that could become a trend where depending on how this season goes, more teams look to do that? And who do the Titans kind of have earmarked in that return role?
Yeah, they've worked so many different guys there this offseason. It's hard to say who the favorite is. I mean, they've even thrown Traylon Burks' name out there as a guy who potentially could do it. They have worked on it. I've watched them in practice. They're trying to identify guys who can be on the kickoff return team. They've identified guys who are on the coverage teams. It's a different play now. You're not running full speed down. You're doing things in tighter spaces, and the returner's, potentially a guy who not only has speed but maybe is physical enough that he can break some tackles early and get into some space. So I expect a lot of guys to be given the chance to do it. But that's kind of like the O-line. You really just don't know how things are going to play out until you're actually doing it in full speed. It looks great out here in non-padded practices, but who is going to be able to deliver when you're playing full speed, full contact against a guy that you've never worked with before on another team? And so I think that play has become very intriguing now. And I'm curious to see how things end up looking myself.
Yeah, that is going to be a radical change from just aesthetically how you're used to watching the kickoff in the NFL. That's going to be wow. Just looking at some of the XFL games, that's going to be hard to fathom in an NFL game. Final question. I know you got to run. It's going to be very difficult for us to see Derrick Henry in that Ravens purple come September. That's going to be difficult for all of us. Two-part question again. Take us back to when Steve McNair, the feeling when he left the Titans to go to the Ravens, seeing him play in that purple. How difficult was that? Not just for fans. We know how it was for fans, but how difficult was it for people in the building to see that? Second part, I've always been a firm believer that Steve McNair belongs in the NFL Hall of Fame. I haven't seen a lot of push for him to get in the Hall of Fame. Most people say he may be able to get in as a senior member one day once that time elapses. So your thoughts on if you can take us back to Steve leaving, seeing him in a Ravens uniform, what that feeling was like, and do you ever think there will be enough push for him to get into the NFL Hall of Fame?
Well, it was hard to watch. I mean, so if you're a Titans fan, I was covering it for the Tennessean then, so I didn't have the strong ties that I did, to the team like I do now. I was covering it more objectively, working for the newspaper, and just the whole storyline was odd. I mean, because it wasn't just Steve. It was Derek Mason, it was Samori Rolle. And I remember when those guys came back in here to play the Titans at a time when that rivalry was at its highest. When I look back at all the years of covering the team, the Titans have had some rivals over the years, but the Titans Ravens from, late 90s up until the early 2000s, there was some bad blood there, a lot of back and forth, great competitive games. It was hard to see Titans in Ravens colors, and it's going to be hard for Titans fans, I know, to see Derrick Henry play in that purple. Not a coincidence. I guess I got on Ravens colors today.
You got on some bad colors to Jim. You got on purple Ravens and you got on a Dodgers cap, and you're talking to an Astros fan. So I want to set up on the other side of the room where I have my Astros memorabilia, but it's not enough. It's not good lighting on that side, because I definitely want to talk to you about 2017. But we'll save that for another day.
Yeah, we're gonna be out of time before we get to that. Yeah,
we'll save that for another day.
But yeah, this is a freebie, so that's why I got this on. But Derrick, I mean, just what a class act he's always been from the time he first got here. Just the way he handled himself on the way out from thanking the crowd to his post game speech in that final game, home game, where he kind of knew the writing was on the wall, and thanked everybody in the building. It's hard. It's funny. I've seen some people say that now that Derrick's with the Ravens, they're not going to cheer for him, and I get that, but I think I'll always root for Derrick Henry to have success, even though I don't want the Ravens to win many games. But it's different, and it was different, like you said, when Steve did it. And as far as his Hall of Fame, credentials or conversation, I hate it for him, and really hate it for Eddie, and really hate it from a lot of those guys in that era, that they don't get more consideration. And I think if they just would have found a way to win one Super Bowl during that time, I think about 99 to 2003, they went to the playoffs 4 times in 5 years, went to 2 AFC championship games. I think they had the best team in the league in 2000, the year after the Super Bowl year, and they let the Ravens come here and beat them. I think they had maybe the best team in the league in 2002 when they lost to, and potentially 2003. They lost to the AFC Championship game in Oakland. 2002 season, and lost up in New England, the following year. And all those teams were capable of winning the Super Bowl, but just things didn't go the way. If they win 1-2, you're talking about a bunch of guys that would be considered Hall of Famers now. But I think it's going to be hard without a Super Bowl trophy. And I have so much respect for Steve, Eddie too. I mean, Eddie played at a time where he never missed a game. He was the workhorse on a team that was relying on the run. Everybody knew what the Titans were doing during that time frame, and they still couldn't stop them. And he doesn't seem to get a fair shake when it comes to Hall of Fame talk either. So I don't know. Maybe down the road, people will look at things differently. I hate to say that I'm not real optimistic about those guys' chances just without having a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
Because Terrell Davis, look at Terrell Davis. I mean, you look at his numbers, and he's got, he's in the Hall of Fame, and he's got a lot less yards, but he won 2 Super Bowls.
He's got 2 Super Bowls, and he played in Denver, and our guys play in Nashville, and there's not that much of a a push and a national buzz around the team, except when they're winning. So we definitely understand that. Well, Jim, man, I know you got to run. You stayed a little bit extra. I definitely appreciate it. We could chat all day about Titans football, but we definitely would love to have you on the show during the season or during camp if you have an opportunity. We definitely appreciate you taking out some time this morning for us and for the viewers. And Mr. Titan said, "What's up, man?" He gave you a shout out there in the chat.
He's down from down in Texas. Yeah, good to see you, Mr. Titan there. And he's got an event coming up here before the season starts here. So he's represents the Titans fan base well himself. So Ken, I appreciate you having me on. You do good work. Like that Akeem Olajuwon jersey in the background. Can't say if you flashed an Astro. I like the Earl Campbell.
Got a little Earl back there, yeah. The Astro stuff on the other side.
Yeah, that's good. Well, you don't have to pan over. I don't want to see any of that. But I like you representing H-Town there.
No problem.
Good spot. Yeah, I love me some Papacitos and some Papados and love going to Houston. It's a great city that we get to go to every year, and I always enjoy my visits down there.
Yeah, I know you're big with with Titan Chris and the Tennessee Titans fans of Houston, and always helping those guys represent. And I get a chance to go to a lot of those functions as well. Hadn't had a chance to meet you in person. Hopefully, we can at the next event. Final question, I promise. Final question.
Okay.
All the jerseys this year. Has there been any talk? Will the team wear those? Please don't wear them against Houston. Don't do it again. Don't do it. But I don't need to hear that down here because I got so much crap over the last 12 months about us losing that game. But any plans on wearing the Oilers jerseys this year? Anything you can share?
Yeah, they plan to wear them again this year. Matter of is going to be how many times. People love the Oilers uniform. I think some people like to see them wear them every single game, but that's not going to happen. They're going to stay as one of the alternates. What's going to change things up a little bit this year is the plan is to bring back those Titans Columbia blue uniforms as well. So I think you're going to see them wear the navy. You're going to see them wear the white. You're going to see them wear the Columbia blues. And that may mean that they only wear the Oilers uniform one time this year. Maybe 2, but I think there's a chance it's 1. And it might not be in the 2024 calendar year. So look at the schedule, and that may tell you which game I think it could be.
All right, there you go.
Because they play the Texans here on either January the 4th or 5th. So I don't know. It's so you may not see them in 2025 in January.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll save that nugget. Hey, Jim, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on the show. Enjoy your off time over the next few weeks, and we'll definitely be looking out for your stories come late July.
We'll do, yeah, and hopefully before then, over the next couple of months, you'll see some stuff. Still see a lot of activity on TennesseeTitans.com and on Twitter. I've currently got an issue with my Twitter account where I'm locked out and I can't post anything there, which is I was able to retweet your post talking about me coming on. I put out a mailbag this morning and then having some login issues I'm hoping to get resolved. So if I go dark here for a little bit, people wonder what the heck happened to Jim Wyatt at J Wyatt Sports on Twitter. It's because I've got some Twitter issues that I hope get resolved here pretty soon.
Okay.
So keep your fingers crossed for me. Maybe put
I will.
Words for me if you know Elon.
Yeah, I'll shoot him a DM.
Yeah.
All right, Jim. Well, you have a great afternoon, my man. We'll look for your work coming up on the website. We'll look out for you on X and on Facebook as well on all your social media accounts.
Okay, Ken. Appreciate it. Have a good rest of June and into July.
All right, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
And go Dodgers.
No. Talk to you soon, buddy.
Okay, I'll see you.
All right, thanks, man. All right, that was the great Jim Wyatt from the senior writer for the Tennessee Titans. We definitely appreciate his time this afternoon, early afternoon edition of the Danger Zone, and we definitely thank you guys for chiming in. And again, we definitely want you guys to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share the show out so your friends and Titans fans who may have missed the show this morning, they'll have a chance to take a look at the content that we were able to provide this morning. So that's going to do it for me this early afternoon edition on the Danger Zone. Of course, we will be coming to you every Sunday night, usually around 8 p.m. Central Time. And of course, during the week, whenever anything breaks in the sports world, not just Tennessee Titans, but anywhere in the sports world, we'll definitely be bringing everything to you guys. So we definitely appreciate everyone hanging out. We hope you guys have a tremendous afternoon wherever you may be. We still got 4 weeks until NFL training camp. So get all your honeydews in, get your vacations in, get your rest in, because we'll be going hot and heavy NFL in about 4 weeks. So we'll see you guys on Sunday. Have a great afternoon, everyone.